1 called Your Manager's Strengths and Weaknesses. So a key part in the beginning of the chapter is talking about our strengths and how we can determine what they are, why they're important, and how they can make us be a better manager. But we start first talking about talents. So talents are the naturally occurring patterns of thoughts, feelings, or behavior we have. I mean, we're all born and have unique talents. Now, from these talents, we can add to our capability to use these talents by gaining knowledge, taking classes, reading books, finding trainings, new experiences that reinforce that talent, and that knowledge allows us to become better at using the talent we have. Now, we take that a step further and we actually use that information and apply it. Then we can actually build skills that are created from our accumulated knowledge that we've gained and applied from or based on our talent. And these are skills that something we could be really, really good at, because we can learn any skill, but if the skill is based on an innate talent we have that we've also reinforced with knowledge, we become much more easily better at that talent than other talents. So it's something we can learn and get better at more quickly. Kind of gives us an advantage over other people with that skill who don't have that talent. So it's kind of by leaning into our strengths, we allow ourselves to be more efficient in achieving certain capabilities that are valuable to us. All right, so next the chapter talks about why should we discover our strengths. Well, I kind of gave a preview of that in my explanation of the importance of building skills from your talents and leaning into your strengths. But an important point the book brings up is the fact that most people are in denial. What it means by that is that we don't necessarily see what our talents and strengths are. And often the way we see ourselves is wrong. We think we know how others see us and what their estimation of our abilities are, but it turns out that our view is distorted. So if we have a distorted view of ourselves, how can we figure out what our strengths actually are? Well, the book talks about there being these 6 high-level virtues: wisdom and knowledge, courage, humanity, justice, temperaments, and transcendence. And each of these, underneath them, having a series of strengths associated with them. And there's a survey or assessment on the University of Pennsylvania .edu website where you can actually take an assessment and find out what your strengths are. Now, I will warn you, this link on this slide is a little outdated. You'll need to take off this /default.aspx off the end, because that's no longer part of the website. But if you go there and go under questionnaires and pick brief strengths, you can take this test and it'll tell you what your strengths are based on this 24 character strength list. And this list came out of something called positive psychology that you'll read about in your book. Now, so you take the assessment, or maybe you don't. But if you're looking at the list of these strengths, how do you know if that's a strength of yours? Or how do you know if what the assessment says is correct? Like, what will you feel about that strength if it is indeed one of your strengths? Well, the book provides a list of common attributes of how you'll relate to your strengths. So You may read about a certain strength and be like, man, this is the real me. It just feels, this very you. You may find that you really enjoy or have excitement whenever you're using that strength. You may find a rapid learning curve in using that strength. It goes back to what I said earlier about how when you lean to your strengths, it's something you're naturally good at, how you're more efficient in improving that skill. So you have a rapid learning curve. You may find you look forward, you learn to use that strength, you look forward to it, you're invigorated by the idea of using it, and you may just feel more motivated when you're using that strength. So those are all some attributes for those 24 strengths, the ones that apply to you, how you may feel different about those individually when you either read about them or actually apply them. Now, after talking about these 24 strengths based on this positive psychology, the book goes into another list of manager strengths that are related to performance. And there are 10 of these. And the book goes into more detail, but there's self-confidence. How much do you believe in yourself? Emotion control. Can you keep your emotions in check? Focus. Are you good at paying attention to your goals and going after them? Objectivity. Are you able to prevent bias in the way you observe yourself and others? Relationship building. One part of being a manager is you have to get work done through other people. Often people, before they become a manager, are used to doing everything themselves. And once they become a manager, it's hard to let go and let other people do things. But that's part of being an effective manager. And you need to have a good relationship with your people who report to you so that they don't just do what you ask because they have to, but because they want to. It comes in being more of a leader versus just a manager. Next is initiative. This has to do with if you have something you need to do, can you start it without procrastinating? Are you able to just get right to it? Goal-directed mindset. Are you good at defining a goal for where you want to go to and what you want to achieve? Ability to organize. This is organizing, like if there's a job to be done, are you able to figure out, okay, we need to do this, we need to do these things in this order, here's who needs to do what? That's organizing. Time management. Are you usually on time? Do you manage your time well? And agility is how well do you adjust to change? So those are 10 strengths that are highly related to being a good manager. Now, one of the strengths we just mentioned was relationship building. There's a chart in your book talking about caring about others that ties very closely to that strength. So, but this isn't just about management. This is just in general that if you're building relationships, you want to show that you care about other people that you're building a relationship with. And I say you should do this. I don't mean that it's something you should do in a fake way. No, you should genuinely care about the people you work with and who work for you anyway. So this shouldn't be something you're forcing. But this chart talks about, on the right side, what are some things that define, if you feel cared about, what does that look like? And the left side talks about what are some things you can do to show you care about someone. So what this chart's trying to show you is that by paying attention to the things on the left side here, things like reaching out to someone and being there for them and encouraging them, those are things that show you care about them. And if you show you care about them, they'll feel cared about and they'll be more loyal as an employee to the company. They'll enjoy their jobs more, probably perform better. There's lots of benefits both to you and them personally as well as professionally. We all want to work for someone who cares about us. So next, the book talks about weak points or limitations around the theory of constraints. So theory of constraints is a topic that's applied to a lot of things. It's applied to manufacturing, but in this case, we're applying it to ourselves. And it says that every system or process has a weakness that prevents maximum performance. So the way it's applied in this chapter is we just talked about our strengths. What weakness is limiting you? What weakness do you have that is preventing you from being as productive as you could? or achieving the potential you could. That's what this is about. And it kind of groups these weaknesses into 3 different levels. First, you have minor weaknesses. These are things that are easy to fix. They're not that big a deal. The next level are kind of, it doesn't call them medium. That's basically what it is, more of a medium weakness. But it's a weakness that, fortunately, you could delegate to someone else, have them do for you. So instead of necessarily getting better at this weakness, you could have someone else do it for you who can do it better than you. And then finally are major constraints. And these are often derail personal and professional success. Some examples of that could be things like dishonesty, low self-control, and low self-confidence. Now, understanding your weaknesses is important because you can't work on them if you don't know what they are and understand them. So it's really important that you understand what your weaknesses are. That way you can figure out, okay, is this something I can easily fix, as we discussed a minute ago? Can I delegate it? Or is this something I really need to work on to make sure it doesn't cause me major issues in my career? Now, speaking of weaknesses causing people to, fail in being able to be a good manager, the book talks about a study that was done of different attributes of managers who fail. They actually questioned a whole bunch of managers and asked them, based on their experience, what are the things that keep managers from being successful? And the number one was all about communication, ineffective communication skills and practices. 81% said that. Number 2, poor work relationships. So that's that relationship building we discussed. Person-job mismatch. Failure to clarify direction and performance. Failing to adapt and break old habits quickly. That'd be like the agility strength we discussed earlier. I'll let you read through these in the book, but the important thing here is notice that communication skills is number 1. So it's very, very, very important. So next the book talks about, in staying with this theme of weaknesses and how it can derail you as a manager from being successful, the 6 killer constraints. So there's the top one here is never feeling good enough. That's the opposite of that self-confidence strength. There's being a marshmallow, which is basically just being too nice. You can't have those difficult conversations. Running roughshod over others is basically the opposite of being a marshmallow. It's being a bully. Playing Mr. Spock. If you don't know, Spock is a character from an old Star Trek series, and he was an alien who was completely logical, had no emotion. So this playing Mr. Spock killer constraint means that you aren't able to think about and understand emotions in the workplace. Demonstrating low self-control. And then finally, being overly too critical. That can really hurt morale if you're always being critical of other people. So there's 6 killer constraints. Now, the book talks about how a great way to help you mitigate these 6 killer constraints is working on your emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is a really important set of skills to work on to be effective manager. But they have this really nice diagram here that breaks them into 4 areas. I want to point some things out that the book doesn't necessarily touch on. If you notice, the top has self-awareness and self-management. So they're both about self. The bottom is social awareness and relationship management. They're both about others. And for the self on top, one's awareness, one's management. And the bottom, one's awareness, one's management. So basically, emotional intelligence is all about being aware of yourself and others and being able to manage your relationships with yourself and others. And if you can do that, I'm going to skip another slide here. One of the benefits is that it allows you to avoid those 6 killer constraints. Those skills effectively help you manage and not fall into these 6 killer constraints. Now, another thing with emotional intelligence the book discusses is the fact that if you have good emotional intelligence and you have a good attitude and you're a positive force in the workplace, it's contagious. On top of this idea of emotional contagion, if you're able to maintain balance and keep yourself motivated and are a positive role model, that'll be contagious and it'll motivate and inspire your team around you. All right, so that's a quick overview of the subject matter in Chapter 1 of our textbook. Hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, please reach out. I'd be happy to help. Hope you have a great week.